Picture this. A woman pulls up to Whole Foods in a brand new Mercedes, wearing a Gucci belt and carrying a Louis Vuitton bag. She spends $200 on groceries without checking prices. In the parking lot, a man in a 15-year-old Toyota Camry walks past her. His shoes are worn. His watch is a $30 Casio. What you don't know is that the woman has $17,000 in credit card debt and lives paycheck to paycheck. The man in the old Toyota has $4 million in investments and owns 6 rental properties. This is the wealth paradox, and it's keeping millions of people trapped in financial struggle. Here's what nobody tells you about money. Poor and middle-class people buy things to look rich. Wealthy people buy things to become richer. One group is playing a game of appearance. The other is playing a game of accumulation. And the difference between these two games determines everything about your financial future. Let me explain why this happens. When you don't have much money, you feel powerless. Society tells you that your worth is tied to what you own, what you wear, what you drive. So you make a decision, often unconsciously. You decide that looking successful is more important than being successful. You buy the designer belt because it signals to the world that you matter. You lease the luxury car because it makes you feel like you've made it. You finance the iPhone because everyone else has one and you can't be left behind. But here's the trap. Every dollar you spend on looking rich is a dollar that can't work for you. The designer handbag doesn't appreciate in value. The luxury car depreciates the moment you drive it off the lot. The expensive dinners at trendy restaurants vanish as quickly as you consume them. You're trading your future wealth for present appearances. And the cruel irony is that the people you're trying to impress either can't afford to be impressed because they're playing the same game, or they're actually wealthy and they see right through the performance. Now let's talk about how rich people actually think about money. Warren Buffett, one of the wealthiest humans on earth, still lives in the house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. He drives modest cars. He eats at McDonald's. Is he cheap? No. He's strategic. Buffett understands something fundamental. Small expenses matter because they reflect your money philosophy. If you're careless with $5, you'll be careless with $5,000. Rich people use coupons not because they need to save $3 on cereal. They use coupons because they understand the game. Money is a tool, not a toy. Every dollar saved on unnecessary expenses is a dollar that can be invested. And invested dollars multiply. They work for you while you sleep. They compound over decades. That $3 coupon, invested properly over 30 years, becomes hundreds of dollars. Multiply that across thousands of purchasing decisions, and you see why the wealthy obsess over small savings while spending millions on income-producing assets. This is what psychologists call the fundamental difference between scarcity mindset and abundance mindset. But that's not quite accurate. It's more specific than that. Poor people operate from status anxiety. They need external validation because they don't have internal security. Rich people operate from value optimization. They don't need to prove anything to anyone, so they're free to make rational decisions based on actual value rather than perceived status. Think about social media for a moment. Instagram and TikTok have turned status anxiety into a pandemic. You see people living their best lives, wearing designer clothes, traveling to exotic locations, eating at expensive restaurants. What you don't see is the credit card debt. You don't see the anxiety of checking their bank account. You don't see them lying awake at night wondering how they'll make next month's car payment. The appearance of wealth has never been easier to fake, and that's made the wealth paradox more dangerous than ever. Here's the science behind why your brain does this. When you buy a luxury item, your brain releases dopamine. You feel good. You feel successful, but it's a temporary high. Within days or even hours, the emotional boost fades, and you're back to feeling inadequate, so you buy again. And again, you're not building wealth. You're feeding an addiction to the temporary feeling of status. Meanwhile, actual wealthy people get their dopamine from watching their investment accounts grow. They've rewired their reward system to value accumulation over appearance. So how do you break free from this trap? First, you have to get brutally honest with yourself. Look at your bank statements from the last 3 months. How much did you spend on things designed to impress other people? The expensive coffee? the brand name clothes, the nights out at trendy bars, the subscription services you barely use, added up. Now imagine if you had invested that money instead. This isn't about guilt. It's about awareness. Second, understand that nobody who matters is impressed by what you buy. The people you're trying to impress with luxury purchases fall into two categories. They're either struggling financially themselves, in which case they're jealous but not actually impressed, or they're genuinely wealthy, in which case they recognize the performance and mentally categorize you as financially illiterate. The only person who needs to be impressed by your financial decisions is your future self. Third, start thinking in terms of assets versus liabilities. This concept from Robert Kiyosaki changed millions of lives. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. The luxury car is a liability. It costs you in payments, insurance, maintenance, depreciation. The rental property is an asset. It generates monthly income. Rich people obsess over acquiring assets. Poor people obsess over acquiring liabilities that look like assets. Fourth, implement the 72-hour rule for any non-essential purchase over $100. When you want to buy something, wait 72 hours. If you still want it after 3 days and you can afford it without debt, consider it. Most of the time, the emotional urgency fades. You realize you were about to spend money on a feeling, not on something you actually needed. Here's what real wealth looks like. It's not the Instagram photo. It's the bank account with 6 months of expenses saved. It's the investment portfolio that grows every month. It's the freedom to say no to a job you hate because you have options. It's the peace of mind that comes from knowing you're not one emergency away from financial catastrophe. Real wealth is invisible. It's boring. It doesn't get likes on social media. And that's exactly why most people never achieve it. The wealth paradox exists because we've confused symbols of wealth with actual wealth. The designer logo is a symbol. The luxury car is a symbol. The expensive watch is a symbol. But symbols are empty. They don't generate income. They don't provide security. They don't buy freedom. They just buy temporary feelings and long-term regret. If you want to be wealthy, stop trying to look wealthy. Start making the boring, unsexy, invisible choices that compound over time. Use the coupon. Drive the modest car. Invest the difference. In 20 years, you'll be the millionaire in the old Toyota, while others are still leasing luxury cars they can't afford. Still trapped in the paradox, still choosing appearance over substance. The game is simple once you see it clearly. Every financial decision is a choice between your present ego and your future freedom. Choose wisely.